Everybody here knows me. Like Darius said, I've helped more people than I can even count lose over 100 pounds. And although I've done a lot of stuff in my fitness career with athletic training, senior training, youth training, cardiovascular conditioning, the list goes on. What we were known for were transformations, and that's when someone loses 100 pounds or more. And I've got it down to a pretty exact science over the years. In March, I will have been a fitness coach for 18 years. So this is something I've dedicated my entire adult life to. After losing over 100 pounds myself, I decided to help other people how to do the same. So it's actually not that complicated. Whether you're trying to build muscle or lose fat or just get into the best shape of your life, it is a numbers game, and it is accounting more than anything else. It is accounting. So that's what we want to talk about today. We don't have the handouts. As you can see, the printer ran out of black ink. So you see my little colorful emojis here and some links, but we're not going to be able to follow along with the handout like I planned. But like Darius said, what we're going to do is we're going to get you guys the handouts afterwards. So if you guys see us later, once we get our ink, we'll be able to hand these handouts out for you.
For your next session, Mike, I'm going to follow up with Dave on the way and make sure that anybody who wasn't able to be here, because the printout is an exact word for word of what it is we're about to go through today. We just didn't want you to have to focus on writing everything down. So if you guys miss a couple of things, the printout will have everything on. Okay?
Yeah, and as we go through this, is to not make this boring and to make this as cool as possible. Instead of giving you a cool PowerPoint, which I could have had AI just spit right out for you, I hand drew all the little drawings myself today to make this a little more personable as we're going through it. This is the foundation of energy and practical fitness nutrition. The reason there's a sun and a tree here is because we're going to talk about thermodynamics, which is a natural law of the universe. Energy can't be created or destroyed. It only moves in form, through form, and out of form, which we all learned in middle school, right? But what we didn't quite grasp probably is that when you're around a campfire and you're burning wood, you're secondarily burning the energy that came down from the sun originally. So all the energy was collected in the form of heat from the sun into the leaves of the plant. Through photosynthesis, it created cellulose. That energy transferred through from the sun to the tree. When you burn a campfire, that's the sun again giving you heat secondarily. Thermodynamics is really important to go over in this presentation because after all, when we're talking about diet, we're talking about the science of energy first and foremost. And where we have to go with that is the diet industry, which is $1 billion industry, has got people to focus on a macro being bad, right? Which macro is bad?
Carbs. People think.
Yeah, we've demonized all of them, for sure. Yes, carbs are the delicious one. So rather than focusing on a macro, I want you guys to see the energy chain as it's going through here so we can bring this home in a way that's illustrated a little bit better. As I go through this, I'm going to be pulling these off and sticking them on over here. And then you guys can take pictures of these if you like to, so we can have the whole presentation down. This is our food chain. The sun shines on plants. We either eat the plants or we eat the animal that eats the plant. The energy transfers through to us. The issue for most people is something we call energy toxicity. And it's not a macro that did that. It's too much energy in general. So when your body gets too much energy, it stores it appropriately as adipose tissue, specifically around our cores, because if our body stored fat all in our left leg, it'd be very hard for us to get around. So through this process, our bodies discovered that the most appropriate place to store it is from here to here. And we have to go over this for a very specific reason, and that's because all of us here are doing the right thing. You guys are coming and training multiple times a week, which is really great. But we have certain ways that calories leave the body. You don't have to remember any of this stuff. Again, the handout's going to have all this stuff on it. Energy coming in is really simple. It's just the food and drink that you consume. That's pretty much all there is to it. Energy going out is a little more complicated. Calories out. On this teeter-totter here, or on this scale, if we have more calories coming in than what are going out, what have you learned so far today?
You store
Our body stores it. That's the only thing it can do with it. It's excess energy. It puts it in a fat cell. That's just how it goes. We have our total daily energy expenditure on the left. These are the only ways that calories leave the body. First and foremost, we have your basal metabolic rate. That's how many calories your body would need to just be awake, but kind of lying around in bed all day. Does anybody know the primary function of your metabolism? To keep you warm. We are mammals and we have to have a core temperature of 98.6 degrees. That's the primary function of our metabolism. Does anybody know what happens if your core temperature raises or drops 4 degrees? You die, yeah. It's pretty simple. So the primary function of our metabolism is to maintain core temperature. Hypothermia, right? You're not going to be around too long if your core temperature drops. Heat stroke, right? You're not going to be around too long if the core temperature raises. So the primary function of our metabolism is to keep us warm. So that's where our basal metabolic rate handles. That's going to be the bulk of the calories leaving your body are your basal metabolic rate. Does anybody know how you would know if you had a slow metabolism? You wouldn't be able to maintain a core body temperature and you would die. Therefore, there's no such thing as a slow or a fast metabolism. The metabolism's primary goal is to keep us warm. The more we have to keep warm, the actual calories that we burn are actually heightened. So the more weight we have to lose, the more calories we're going to be required to keep our basal metabolic rate ripping. Let me just give you an example of this real quick. I'm going to type my stats in when I first started into this caloriecalculator.net. I was 25 years old. I was 6 feet tall, 0 inches, and I weighed 325 pounds. Calculate that real quick. To maintain weight, I would have had to eat 3,658 calories a day. This calculation is fairly accurate. Does anybody know why this is so accurate? Because I didn't die. That's how many calories that I needed to maintain weight, right? So it's pretty simple. This is accounting first and foremost. We have to account. Now, let's go back a little bit from here and let me type in my stats now. Now I'm 44. I'm still a male. I'm 6 feet tall and I weigh 210 pounds. Now to maintain my weight, I need 2,755 calories a day. So this calculation is always based upon your weight. It's not based upon anything else. Notice it didn't ask me for my percentage of body fat here, or my body composition. Because it doesn't matter how my body is composed, it has to stay warm regardless if that's muscle or if that's fat. So if my stats were exactly the same, it's going to burn the same amount of calories regardless of my percentage of body fat. Does that make sense? Excellent. It's important to get this point across because you often hear that you'll burn more calories the more muscle you have, and that's very true, but you only burn that during movement. You don't burn that at rest. So that does not affect your basal metabolic rate. Next is non-exercise activity thermogenesis, known as NEAT. This is anything you're doing that's not regimented exercise. Sitting burns the lowest amount of calories. Standing burns a little bit more. Walking burns a little bit more than that. Running burns a little bit more than that, and so on and so forth. But the biggest mistake people make is we wake up in the morning and we sit while we drink our coffee. We take a few steps to our car where we sit to get to work. We take a few steps into work where we sit all day long. We take a few steps back to our car where we sit to get home. We take a few steps into home where we sit because we're so exhausted from sitting all day that we sit when we get home. The average American sits 6.5 hours a day outside of work. Does anybody have a rough estimate of how much our ancestors sat? Yes. Yeah, just about 2. Yeah. Yeah. And that was segmented in little 10-minute blocks here and there throughout the day. So we're working with the same systems that were around back then. And so we have to remember that the biggest lever we can pull is our non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So you really do want to move just as much as you possibly can. You want to minimize sitting as much as you possibly can. You want to find some sort of hobby or recreation that allows you to move around as much as you possibly can. Next is the thermal effect of food, otherwise known as TEF. That is the percentage of the calories in every macronutrient that are used to actually assimilate those calories. Let's take a wild guess here. We have 3 macronutrients. We have fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. Can anybody guess what the percentage of the thermal effect is for fats? 0 to 3%. So up to 3% of the calories you get from fat are actually burned in the assimilation of fat. What about carbohydrates? Anybody got a guess? 5 to 10%. 10% if it's high fiber carbohydrates. 5% if it's table sugar. Protein is the biggest thermal effect of food, 20 to 30%. So we're talking 20 to 30% versus 0 to 3 or 5 to 10. It's a massive lever that you can pull if you're looking to make this change.
So you actually are burning more just by consuming something specific.
Hopefully, this is what I said in the last talk, hopefully you get more pressure from us to eat your protein as an adult than you ever got to do drugs when you were a teenager. That's the goal, is to feed you guys this peer pressure to eat the adequate amount of protein. That's called positive peer pressure, by the way. We're not saying chug, chug, chug. We're saying eat your protein. Out of the percentages, we kind of went over BMR, 70% of your total calories. This is your resting energy expenditure, is your basal metabolic rate. Everything else is a non-resting energy expenditure. Your non-exercise activity thermogenesis is up to 30%. Does anybody know why it's up to 30%? Boom. If you're the average American sitting 6.5 hours a day outside of work, that's going to be more towards the 0 end. But this is the biggest lever that you have to pull. Thermal effect of food is up to 10%. If you have an appropriate macronutrient ratio, you're going to burn up to 10%. Exercise activity thermogenesis can be up to 10%, but we're talking for elite athletes from 23 to 27 years old who have a regimented program where they're doing some sort of training 2 hours a day, 6 days a week. And most of us couldn't handle that. There'd be a breakdown effect where we can't just exercise all the time. And the point we want to drive home here is exercise clinically has never shown to change your percentage of body fat. You can't out-train a bad diet. In other words, it doesn't matter how effectively you're training, it's just not going to do the job. Now, you have to exercise. It's the only way to build bone density. It's the only way to build muscle. It's the only way to increase your VO2 max. There's no way around it. You have to exercise. You have to exercise efficiently. You have to know the exact sets to do and reps to do and rest to take and when to do a low volume, high weight day and when to do a high volume, low weight day. You have to know when to mix these body parts up, when to train legs, blah, 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 right? The cool part is, everybody here, that's something we take care of for you, so you don't have to worry about that. That's the main benefit of coming here, is you don't ever have to go home and worry about, when do I mix body parts up? I just trained legs yesterday. Should I be training legs today?
And while we're on the subject with the BMR, this basal metabolic rate, every single person in here that's got a body scan from me or from Brendan, we've gone through and we've identified that basal metabolic rate, like how many calories you're burning just existing, right? That is being burned every day because you exist, because of your weight. So you need that, right? Like you're gonna get into deficits and surpluses and things like that, but like you need that many calories, that basal metabolic rate of calories every day just to get through the day. Because you're going to end up burning 0 to 30% extra in the walking and the sitting and everything else and eating and the exercise. Okay, so there is a floor on like how little you want to eat. Okay, and we need to be very aware of that because we're not gonna be able to achieve anything without the energy to achieve, right? So that basal metabolic rate is like your minimum calories.
And if you don't eat your basal metabolic rate, usually you're losing your muscle mass. And we're working so freaking hard to keep it, why would we give it away?
Good point, Hannah. Yeah, and let's drive that point home just a little bit more. What he's talking about specifically is there is a minimum that you don't want to eat under. And so you have to be really calculated about this. Your body will regulate your non-exercise activity thermogenesis if you eat under. Meaning this 0 to 30% will go more towards 0. And the reason for that is if you don't have the calories, your body is going to tell you to just sit. So you have to have calories to burn calories, if that makes sense. So we don't want to eat too little. We don't want to eat too much. We want to find a sweet spot. And that sweet spot is going to be something that I'm going to show you guys how to easily calculate as we go through this. Let's drive this protein point home just a little bit. This is the thermal effect of food, specifically talking about protein. If somebody was to eat 150 grams of protein per day, their thermal effect of food is going to be 45 calories per day. Doesn't sound like a lot. At the end of 365 days, that's 16,425 calories per year. What that's going to equate to is if you wanted to burn a pound of fat, you're going to need to be in a caloric deficit of 3,500 calories. Now, you're not just going to drop your calories by 3,500. You're going to multiply that by 7 days, and you're going to reduce your calories by 500 per day to get your 3,500 deficit at the end of 7 days. If you were to eat 150 grams of protein a day in a year span, you're going to burn 4.69 pounds of body fat. And just by eating 150 grams a day, you're going to be what's called a positive nitrogen balance. A positive nitrogen balance is eating above the minimum required protein, which is 1 gram per pound. So everybody looks at their in-body, you're going to know exactly what your lean body mass is. Your lean body mass is your minimum daily protein consumption. Generally, we want to go far above that though. In this person here, this example person, in a 5-year span, they're going to burn 23 pounds of fat just eating their protein. And in doing so, they're not going to lose any muscle. They're more than likely going to gain. This person, if they were to eat maintenance calories, so not a caloric deficit, if you were to eat maintenance calories, but 150 grams of protein for 5 years straight, you're going to look dramatically different with that 23-pound loss. Dramatically different. You're going to have these nice rounded shoulders. You have quads that are popping out because you've gained muscle in this process of losing solid fat. All of that number is going to come from fat. Now, if you're a man, it's going to be a little bit more. If you eat 200 grams of protein a day, that's 31 pounds at the end of 5 years. So it's a big difference just by eating your protein. The protein point is huge. If your calories in matches your calories out, your weight is going to stay stable. If your calories in is under your calories out, you're going to lose weight. If it's above, you're going to gain weight. This is math and accounting we're talking about more than anything else. As far as we know, on a clinical setting, there are no known conditions that sidestep thermodynamics. No known conditions. Not a thyroid condition, not a hereditary issue. It's all about keeping your core temperature warm for the most part, is where all your calories are going to come from. So I want you to get out of this part that your metabolism is not slow and there's nothing wrong with you. It has nothing to do with your hormones and it has everything to do with your accounting. And that's pretty boring, having to be accountable to everything all the time. Your BMR plus your non-exercise activity thermogenesis are the biggest levers you can pull as far as changing your body composition is concerned. But this is something that's rarely discussed, and this is what weight loss actually looks like. It's important to drive this point home. This is your weight over here. This is time over here. This can be at a micro or a macro setting, meaning this can be a 7-day period or this can be a 5-year period. Your weight should do this. It should go up and down and up and down. We're looking for a downward moving channel. We're not looking for the weight to go down every single time you step on the scale. We want to see this channel move down. Does anybody know why you have to gain weight after you lose weight? You have to. There's no way around it. Every pound of fat you lose, yes, holds minerals, potassium, calcium, magnesium. Those minerals then need to be diluted by your body water and they need to be assimilated properly. So if you lose a pound of fat, the scale must go up as your body dilutes that. Now, unfortunately, the scale is a very vague way to track things. We're just tracking overall weight. We're not tracking body composition. But this is what it should look like. We should go up and down and up and down. Where do people quit? Where do people throw in the towel on this chart? Anytime it's a peak, anytime. So if you're in week 3 here and you're like, oh, I've been doing this right and the weight's gone up, I might as well eat what I want to eat. And that is, have you heard the analogy? You're driving down the road, you get a flat tire, you get out and you're so pissed off that you stab the other 3. That's exactly what that's doing. You're inducing like this negative emotional state for something that's supposed to happen. And who here hasn't got frustrated when the scale goes up? No hand should raise, right? So everybody does. But we want to approach this on a scientific way and not in an emotional way. And that's the hardest part about this, is just being a scientist and just doing the program.
I had somebody visualize, paint a picture, or I think I've seen a video, I think maybe both of them actually. But when we lose fat, it's like one of the cars in the parking lot has just left. Now, the reason your body doesn't change is because that parking spot is still there. Even though it's empty, it's still there. And that parking spot has to then be filled with something else. The assimilation process, right, where the minerals go from fat into something into the rest of the body. And what fills that space while the fat is gone is water, which is why when you lose weight or you lose fat, you're not seeing that change immediately because it's getting replaced with water. And then once the assimilation process has had the time that it needs, once your body has had the time that it needs to readjust, eventually construction gets done and they take away that parking spot. Okay? So like, just a good way for you guys to have a mental picture of like what losing fat actually is like. You're just taking something out, but then it gets filled right back up again with water so that your body doesn't freak out, so that you don't freak out, so that you can have maintenance, regulation. And then once it's used to just having that water there, then it leaves through sweat and you start to tone up and thin out.
Excellent. And here's another good analogy. You're driving around a brand new Corvette. You fill up the gas tank. And then for whatever reason, you decide to go into the store, get another gas tank, fill that up. Your tank's already full. You got the energy. So you put the gas can in the back seat. And then the next time you need gas, instead of taking the gas can out of the back seat, you fill your car up, you go in the gas station again, you fill up another gas can, you put that in the back seat. Pretty soon the car's full. That's your visceral fat, right? The trunk's full. And then you start strapping cans of gas to the outside of the car, right? And so now you're moving through the world and the aerodynamics now suck. You got all these gas cans strapped to the outside of the car. You don't accelerate well, you don't brake well. So in accounting, when it comes to calories, what you need to learn how to do is instead of going to the gas station and putting gas in your tank and then putting extra on the outside of your vehicle, take a gas can off the outside of the car, put it into the gas tank. Does that make sense? So that's what we want to do. We want to teach you guys how to account for the calories as we're moving forward with this. Key takeaways from part 1. There's no such thing as a slow metabolism. No hormonal or genetic condition can break the laws of thermodynamics. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. There's nothing wrong with you. BMR plus non-exercise activity thermogenesis burn the most amount of calories. Focus on moving as much as you possibly can, and sitting needs to be minimized. An additional is moving up to your thermal effect of food and getting adequate protein. Then we've taken care of the majority of your needs as far as your calories out are concerned on the table here. Diet controls fat loss, training sculpts the physique. Training not only sculpts the physique, it ensures that you have proper longevity, bone density, muscle structure, lowers your incidence for all-cause mortality. So the biggest lever you can pull in the beginning, initially, everybody should start exercising first. That's the first thing you should start doing. Everybody in this room is taking care of that though. So this is the next part we're talking about. Prioritize protein is the foundation for your thermal effect of food, fullness and muscle building and retention as you start to reduce your calories. Simply slashing calories without high protein and resistance training is a fast track to losing muscle, not just fat. High protein plus heavy weight lifting tells your body, keep the muscle, burn the fat. That's what we want to do. Now I want to open the floor up a little bit for any sort of questions you guys might have before we get into the most boring part, which is math.
No questions, really? We know all this. We can teach this to our kids now. Perfect.
Before we get into the math, which is going to be a little more boring, I do want to say this, and this is the weirdest part about the conversation, because people have an emotional reaction to what I'm about to say.
I have a question.
Yes,
What are the type of proteins?
it definitely matters, yes. Lean proteins are the best. Whey protein is number one best. But other than that, it's going to be lean proteins. The scale of bioavailability from 0 to 100 was set on egg whites being 100. Whey protein is 110. So the scale was invented before whey protein was invented, but whey protein assimilates better than any other protein source. And it allows you to actually get your protein in without having to chew food all day long. But whey protein is by far number one, yes. But the only issue with whey protein is if it's and you can get the majority of protein from whey protein, but you're just going to be hungry. That's the only issue with it. You're not going to be hungry if you're chewing chicken all day long, you know. Here's the part that people have an emotional reaction to. So before I get into this, I will say that it's a bad idea to identify with whatever diet you're on. It's a bad idea to identify as a vegan or as keto or as paleo. And the reason for that is if information comes to you that is contrary to what you identify with, now it's a personal attack. It's not information. Now you feel like someone's attacking you. It's information. Here's what we know now. There is nothing wrong with seed oils. Is that shocking to anybody? Does anybody feel like there's some agenda or propaganda to get you to believe that seed oils are bad for you?
Yeah. But not necessarily the seed oil, just like microplastics and like fakes. It's not even seed oil. It's like made of something else.
For sure.
That's what I'm worried about, not necessarily oil.
Let's get into this tab here. I have a minute video. I don't know if the volume's turned up or not, but.
Okay.
Of course, we have to watch an ad.
The agenda. The agenda.
This doctor is going to tell you everything causes cancer. It's not thermodynamics. It's undigested food in your intestine, is what he's going to say. Great example of how the diet. Okay, here we go.
And little Debbie snack cakes, not exactly what we call diet foods, but a nutrition professor lost 30 pounds eating just that. Kansas State University professor Mark Howard spent 10 weeks eating Twinkies, brownies, zebra cakes, and corn pops. He consumed no more, now this is important, he consumed no more than 1,800 calories a day. Howard did this to prove that in weight loss, what matters most is the total calories in the food you're eating, not the nutritional value. But nutrition experts say this is not good for his long-term health.
Their immunity will go down. They'll be at a greater risk for cancer, for heart disease, and then they'll probably end up gaining weight.
So you try this at home. After 10 weeks, he was 27 pounds lighter and his bad cholesterol was down 20%. Howard did throw in vitamins, protein shakes, and some vegetables, as well as moderate exercise. And he says he is not recommending it for everyone. It was just a calorie counting experiment. And
Every blood marker improved. His bad cholesterol went down. His good cholesterol went up. His triglycerides went down. His blood sugar went down. The reason that happened is pretty simple. He's working with the laws of thermodynamics. It didn't matter that it was mostly zebra cakes and Twinkies. He was in a caloric deficit and consuming whey protein. So he kept his muscle and he reversed all his blood markers. Now, he's not saying to do this, and I'm not saying to do this. But what I'm saying is we've demonized certain foods to confuse people that it's not about calories in, calories out, that it's not about thermodynamics, that it's not about natural laws of the universe and accounting, that it's about other things. Now, I'm not recommending at all what he's saying and what he did. He did that to prove a point to his students. One of his students came in one day and said that if you ate nothing but donuts, you would gain weight regardless of the calories, regardless of the caloric composition of that. And he said, well, that's wrong. This is thermodynamics. This is accounting. And I'm going to prove it by doing this experiment just to show you guys. So he ate in a 500 calorie deficit. He consumed 150 grams of protein. He did take some vitamins and ate a few vegetables, but his diet was mostly gas station food. Now, the media popularized this and just started calling it the Twinkie diet because in a lot of the videos he was eating Twinkies. What I'm trying to say here is that we can't demonize a specific food and go down all those individual rabbit holes as a proxy for accounting for our calories. It's just not going to work. So don't be confused here. What I'm trying to say is that calories overall are what matter most. Is there some long-term effects of eating these foods in the future? Maybe. But there will for sure be sarcopenia on your end if you're not eating protein and doing resistance training. You're for sure going to lose bone density. You're for sure going to shorten your life. So some things are more important than others. And when we were talking about leverage with fitness, the biggest leverage you have is calories in, calories out. And then secondarily to that is the independent foods that you're eating as far as your macronutrients are concerned. So if you're optimizing protein and in a caloric deficit, you can reverse all your blood markers and actually lose a lot of weight. Don't do that. But
It's just about being aware of what foods that you either enjoy or you're accustomed to eating are extremely caloric. You know what I mean? Like one snack wrap from McDonald's, which is a single chicken tender and a tortilla with lettuce and a little bit of sauce. Nothing. I can have 6 of them. One of them has 900 calories. One. So if that's what makes it bad. It's like it's not the size, it's not what you're having. Like most people would think that's not a bad thing. It's chicken, lettuce, tortilla, some sauce. But it's how it's processed. It's how caloric they have made the food. Now, if I were to go home and I were to cook 4 ounces of chicken, and I would use a no-carb tortilla, and I would chop up my own lettuce and put a little bit of mustard on there, I can get the exact same thing. Obviously, it's not fried, for 230 calories, right? Or I could fry it, and the fact that I didn't get it from McDonald's is gonna maybe max it out at 500, 550 calories. Right? Future air fryer, right? But it's about being aware of how caloric is this food. I had no idea that 3 Oreos was, what, 400 calories?
woo!
3. I eat a sleeve at a time. A sleeve. You know what I'm saying? Not including the milk, vanilla, almond milk, extra sugar. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's really just about being aware of the calorie count overall.
I don't like the term junk food. I don't agree with it. I don't think there's a junk food. I think there's a bad amount. And let's just drive this point home a little bit further. If I was to name what I thought were the top 3 healthiest food, let's say olive oil, salmon, and eggs, whole eggs. If I was to eat in a caloric surplus, am I going to gain weight eating only those healthy foods? Yeah. Now, will my diabetes know that those were health foods once I get it from continuously being in a caloric surplus? No, it's got no idea. All it knows is we have all this extra adipose tissue from the extra calories we were consuming, and that adipose tissue collectively releases a group of hormones called adipokines that raise our blood pressure, that raise our blood sugar, that cause our cholesterol and our triglycerides to go up. It doesn't matter if that was health food. So your body has no indication if that was a brownie or if that was olive oil. If you're in a caloric surplus, you will get disease regardless of where those calories are coming from. What I don't like when people do is that when they feel bad about eating bad food. If in your mind a food is bad and then you eat the food and then you feel bad for eating the food, if you're in a caloric deficit, it doesn't matter. Why would you just arbitrarily feel bad because of this propaganda that's out there to make you feel bad about eating what's called bad food? I think there's bad amounts. I don't necessarily think there's a bad food. And I will say this too. I didn't say this at the last meeting. For my birthday, Darius brought in a pizza.
A big daddy pizza. Not no joke of a pizza. A Philly cheesesteak pizza with extra American cheese and cherry peppers and all that good stuff.
I ate half, he ate half. And then we did an insane workout, right?
Like an hour and a half.
I didn't gain any weight from that, did you?
No, I felt thinner after. I wanted more food after. I immediately left here to go get more food.
So over the long term, you do want to open up your diet. And as long as you're in a caloric deficit, that's all that matters. Don't feel bad about eating pizza or eating some zebra cakes or whatever. Minimize that for sure because they're high calorie, low volume. So your stomach isn't going to fill up on that. So you're always going to want more. Oh, yes.
I agree with you in so many ways, but the way I like to say this is there's no moral code to food.
Yes.
There is food that is nutritionally dense.
Yep.
It's going to help you perform well, function well, sleep well, build muscle. There's food that we enjoy. That's for pleasure. Now, do we play more than we work? Maybe I do. Do you know what I'm saying?
I get it, yeah.
You have to be mindful that there's no moral code to food. It doesn't make you a bad person if you eat Oreo. If that brings you joy, eat the dang Oreo.
Yes, I agree. Thank you, Tana. That's great. Yeah, don't feel bad about eating bad food.
Yes, I mean, don't forget that.
Emotional.
I don't feel good. No, I feel that my body's telling me, don't eat that. You don't feel good. You eat that.
Yeah, you
It-
develop intolerances.
I will-
Your human intuition is incredible, right? Like when you but a lot of the time it's going to come from the toxicity. Like you might have already reached what you need for the day, and now you're about to go over it, and that's the response that you're feeling, as opposed to this is going to make you feel better. It's not necessarily the food.
I also think that we are all our own science experiments, and one reason that we come into the gym, we get really in tune with our bodies, and we know what is not worth it. I love it when people go out and go crazy the night before they come in, and then they have a workout, and they're like, I drank too much last night, or I ate really crappy. I'm like, yeah, isn't it awesome? Now you know it might not be worth it. So I think we all are our own body is our own science experiment, and you're going to do what's right for you. And I know I'm not going to eat even one piece of that pizza. I won't, because my stomach doesn't like cheese.
Yeah, and I can't have like jalapenos in my pizza. That is bad. I love jalapenos. You know, I eat jalapenos 3 days a week, but something about jalapenos and pizza together is the worst mistake the next day every time.
I was like, too, on a clinical setting, it's more of an emotional response than it is a biochemical response in a caloric deficit. You would feel just as bad if you overeat salmon, avocado, and olive oil. Just as bad. So any caloric surplus makes you feel bad. Now, the caloric surplus can be acute or chronic. Acute meaning if I were to eat, a box of cookies right now, I'm now in a caloric surplus for the time. So how many calories did I burn while I ate all those calories? It was much less. So if I'm standing here talking to you guys eating a box of cookies the whole time, I'm in a caloric surplus for a short period of time. I can still be in a deficit by the end of the day, but the surplus is what makes you feel bad, not necessarily the food. So on a clinical setting, it's more of an emotional response than it is a physical response. You have got to know that placebo is one of the strongest factors in medicine. All medicines have to beat placebo in clinical trials in order for them to move on to the next stage of the trial. That means 30 out of every 100 people are going to get the effects that I tell them they're going to get when they eat the food. This is used for athletes a lot. If you have an athlete that's stuck on a plateau, the best thing to do is to get some ethyl alcohol or some corn alcohol, right? And put it in a tiny dropper, and it tastes really nasty. And you tell them to put a drop under their tongue before they go do their lift. Now, that's not enough alcohol to negatively affect them, but it is enough to set a placebo. Athletes typically lift 15 to 20% more when placeboed. If you tell them the substance is going to make them stronger, they actually get stronger, not because of the substance, but because their brain told them that they were now stronger. Now, it's the same thing with most junk foods. If you eat junk food and you feel bad immediately, it didn't have enough time to even process. It might take up to 72 hours for some of those chemicals to actually get into your bloodstream. So why do you feel bad immediately? Right? Placebo. I know a person who would say, oh, I got low blood sugar, and then they'd eat a Pop-Tart. And then they say, oh, I feel better after 2 bites. There's not enough time. You don't actually feel better. It just doesn't have time for it to assimilate into your blood. Your blood sugar didn't increase at all, but you told yourself that you're going to feel better, so you felt better, right? So as we're moving forward, the biggest levers you have to pull are calorie density at the end of the day, but more importantly, the end of the week. If we were to, Darius, you want to type your stats in real quick, just for on the calorie counter here?
Said mine.
Mm-hmm. Just as an example. We'll calculate that. And then we're going to scroll down. Look at this real quick. Look at how the calories are different as the days of the week go by. 27, 23, 23, 23, 23, 27. Saturday, Sunday surplus. At the end of the week, he's still in a deficit. If we scroll down a little bit more, we can see this zigzag schedule too. Again, the calories are changing as we go. Sundays 22, Mondays 23, Tuesdays 25, 27, 26, 24, 23. A weekly deficit is more powerful than a daily deficit. And so this is where we get real into the psychological aspect of this. How many of you have ever said in the past, I will be the first one to raise my hand, oh, I blew it, I might as well eat what I want for the rest of the day? Thanks for being honest. Yes. You actually haven't. It's the weekly calories that mean more than the day. You haven't blown it. If you're in the same deficit at the end of the week that you would have been, it's the exact same outcome. We're talking about accounting here as we go through.
And this is going to be where like that intermittent fasting like is so comes into play and is different for everybody. Because like if your body's used to getting a huge caloric surplus, and then if you're trying to maintain a weekly average, then it makes sense to intermediate fast, right? But if you are just daily trying to inch away at it, it just may be more attainable, right? So it's like you're either having really dense food, not as often, or you're having one huge meal a day, and that's the only way like intermittent fasting actually works for you. And as we get older, we get fuller faster. We can't eat as much. Like one of the things we hear the most is, "How can I eat that much? How can I get 100? Like, I'm gonna have to eat 4 meals a day, right?" And like that's just depends on your density. And are you weighing it? Are you really being intentional with it, or are you just guessing?
That's a great point. Yeah. So intermittent fasting or any kind of fasting, there's no magic to it. You're just in a caloric deficit. So you often hear, oh, fasting works really well for me. The only reason it works is because you're in a deficit. But you get the exact same deficit if you were to eat every 2.5 hours all day long. As long as the calories are the same, it doesn't matter. So there's no magic with fasting. So as we go through, I would love for you guys to focus more on caloric deficit with a positive nitrogen balance, or eating less than what you need, but more protein than what you need, than you're ever concerned with aspartame, seed oils, high fructose corn syrup, or MSG. So those are all rabbit holes you can go down that are very low leverage. And later on, if you want to worry about those things, fine. But in the beginning, when you're trying to do this accounting, it's better not to go down rabbit holes, and it's better just to eat in a caloric deficit with a positive nitrogen balance. So that's like the main thing as we go through. I'm kind of moving along fast. Do you think we need a movement break or?
Yeah, anybody want to move around? Bathroom break, water break. Yep. Okay, let's keep pushing.
Okay. When you guys get this handout, what's going to happen is you're going to get this address for this website. You're going to be able to enter your stats into this website, and you're going to be able to calculate exactly what we need to do. I'm going to get a marker out, and then I'm going to do some math for you guys, again, using us as examples. Last thing I'm going to do is call anybody out. I mean, holy shit. All right. Who wants to pull their phone out for me real quick and do some math? Woohoo! Everybody excited about math? You got me? Okay, good. Let's take a look at this chart real quick. You're going to, on your handout, it's going to have this website address for you to go type your stats in right here. So if Darius wanted to lose weight, no intention on losing weight, but let's just say with his stats, it was somebody else that was 50% body fat instead of single digit body fat. That person, if they wanted to lose a pound a week, they would need to consume 2,231 calories. That would put that person in a caloric deficit. 2,231 calories. How many calories are there in a gram of protein?
4.
4. Protein is 4 calories per gram. He would need to at least eat his lean body mass in protein. But we're not talking about him. We're talking about somebody with his stats that's 50% body fat. Let's say that person has 100 pounds of lean body mass. 100 pounds of lean body mass times how many calories per gram? 400 calories. So what's 2231 minus 400? 1831 is what he has left at the end of the day after 100 grams of protein, which are 4 calories per gram. Out of this remainder of 1831, we're going to divide that by 2, which would be 915 twice. Half of that, what macros do we have left if we already took care of protein? Carbs and fats. How many calories are in how many calories are in a gram of fat? 9. Excellent. So this 915 is going to get divided by 9, and that's going to equal 46 grams of fat. This is going to get divided by 4 for carbohydrates.
So carbs and protein are 4 calories per gram.
Mm-hmm.
And fats are 9 calories per gram.
Yep, and that's all going to be on your handouts.
Okay.
So we have 228 on your carbs, 46 on your protein, 46 on your fat, and 100 on your protein. So this person here's macros are 100 grams of protein per day. They're going to eat 46 grams of fat per day and 228 grams of carbs per day.
And that's to lose weight. That's to lose a pound of weight.
This person would lose a pound a week, no matter what. It can't not happen. We're talking about accounting here, math, and thermodynamics. Now, how do you know how many calories you're eating in order to subtract this and do your math?
Track it.
You have to track it. Now, I don't want to get across here that everybody should immediately get a food scale and tablespoons and cups and just start weighing and measuring all their food. Although if you did, it would be a good decision. But some people mentally aren't ready for that. At the point you get to where you're ready to say, I want to lose a pound a week, every single week, you would do this math and you would account for all the calories coming in. It's pretty simple. If somebody wanted to gain weight, again, if we're talking about a young athlete and they weigh 165, but they want to weigh 185, they would need to gain 20 pounds. They would reverse this. They would increase that by 500 a day as they're going through. The math works for a young athlete trying to gain weight, and it works for anybody else trying to lose weight. Thermodynamics are the same for every person in every condition. So this would be the macros that person would need to follow. Now, in order to make sure that they're actually in a caloric deficit, they would need to weigh and measure all of their foods. The reason for that is simple. If you guys were to switch to a healthy diet, and you know I don't like those terms, healthy or bad by now. If you were to switch to a 100% healthy diet, literally overnight, I could just snap my fingers and you did it. You would likely say olive oil is good for me and you would just drizzle it on your salad. A tablespoon of olive oil is 120 calories, which is just the tiniest amount. So if you're just like, healthy salad, all of a sudden it's not healthy. You just put 500 calories of olive oil on a salad, which is arguably a health food, right? This is where accounting comes in. As you guys exercise, your appetites increase, and they should. But instead of eating anything else, you should be eating protein with that increased appetite and accounting for your 100 grams a day. So as we move forward with this, we've done the math for this imaginary person at 50% body fat with 100 pounds of lean body mass. And that person would have a good guideline as to where to start exactly. So the first thing you do is you do your calculation for how much weight you want to lose. I don't recommend anybody doing extreme weight loss unless you have 100 more pounds to lose. Now here's the tricky part about this. This person would for sure lose a pound a week, accounting for all of their food. Now what happens in 10 weeks? They're 10 pounds lighter, and now they burn way less calories because they've lost 10 pounds. So they would need to redo this calculation. They would need to go back and enter their stats in again at their new weight. And this is where a lot of people miss this with accounting and eating healthy, is they use the same macros and calorie breakdown year 1 and year 5. And they say, well, this worked for me before. Why isn't this working for me now? Well, you've lost a lot of weight. And so the calories now, the demand for calories are now different. So let's memorize this real quick. Let's say weight loss is 2231. And then let's minus 10 pounds off of that weight. See what that does. So now it's 2164. So now if that person ate 2231, they would be in a surplus. Does that make sense? So this is where the accounting part comes in. Is there a little psychosis required to weigh and measure all of your food? I'm going to say yes, there is. You have to get a little bit crazy with it. I did it for several years. I didn't trust restaurants, so I'd bring my own dressing. And the reason I'm looking for my wife is because she lived through it. Yes, she did. She lived through it. She lived through me bringing Tupperware everywhere and prepping my meals always and never trusting a restaurant, because the number one way to get food to taste better is to add more calories. So that's what they do. Your steak in the kitchen, and anybody ever work in a steakhouse knows that they have a brush with butter back there. They dip the butter brush in with the seasoning and they butter your steak up as they're turning it. How much butter was on that steak? There's no way to account for it. And I'm not saying not to go out to eat, but minimizing going out to eat is very important.
Have you ever had broccoli at a restaurant like this is amazing, and then you make it at home and you're like, this is gross? That's because there's probably a nice 3 tablespoons of butter per floret.
Mm-hmm.
Is it to the Christmas party and you like my green beans? It's because of all the bacon. And
They were delicious. Yes.
freaking fantastic.
They were so good. Now, this isn't something that you have to stick to absolutely forever, but you do need to stick to it long enough to get portions down. And you will start to memorize macros. You'll know that a 4-ounce chicken breast is 125 calories, 20 grams of protein, 4 grams of fat, 0 carbohydrates. You'll start to memorize these things. And as you start to memorize them, then you're not doing all this crazy math. Now, the important part about this is when I first started doing this, there was no apps. I was doing longhand math every day. I'd have breakfast, I'd pour the egg beaters in a cup and pour it in a pan. Then I'd have 1 ounce of cheese shredded. It's 110 calories, 7 grams of protein, 9 grams of fat, 1 gram of carbohydrate. Then I'd put spinach.
See how he just knows this?
You do memorize it. Yeah.
I'm not like that at all. Just say it. This is one of a kind.
Then you have your half cup of dry oats, and you measure oats dry because everybody likes a different amount of consistency with their oats. I like mine more liquidy. So you wouldn't measure them after you cooked them. You'd measure them dry because then it's all the same. So I would account for everything that was going in as it was happening throughout the day. After breakfast, I do the math. How many calories, carbs, fat, and protein were breakfast? This let me know what I needed for lunch and dinner snacks. And then before I ate dinner, I'd have to do the math for the whole day to let me determine what I ate for dinner. That let me know what was left. Then once apps came out, it's a whole different world now. You literally weigh and measure your food. You put it in the app. The app does a running total throughout the day. And guess what? If you were to download MyFitnessPal, which is the app that I recommend to track your food, MyFitnessPal, let me write that down for you guys. The cool part about MyFitnessPal is you plan a day that you haven't done yet. So if you downloaded the app tonight and you have all these days in the behind you with nothing in the log because of your first day logging. So you use yesterday to make a perfect day. So you have your breakfast, lunch, dinner, your snacks, you enter all the foods that you would eat. And if the calories are too high, you minus. If the protein's too low, you add lean protein sources. You do that up and down until you have an ideal day that meets your macros. Then you go the day before that and you say, I might get sick of chicken, maybe I want some sirloin, and you add sirloin instead. You have all these days in the backlog that you can fill that have perfect macros, and then you just refer to those days moving forward. It's never been easier to do accounting for fitness. It really hasn't. So you have very little math to do on your own aside from programming MyFitnessPal. So when you download MyFitnessPal, you can actually enter in there the calories, carbs, fat, and protein that you want to eat, and then it will start doing the running totals for you. So like I said, there's never been an easier time to do this.
And if I can just say something on blogging, as someone who's lived through the extreme version, I've done it myself, I've put people through it. I think the biggest deal with blogging is it brings awareness to your food. The biggest feedback that I've gotten from people is like, I had no idea this had this many calories, or I had no idea this was this. So being aware of what you're eating and actually taking the time to log the cookie, to log the chocolate, and then you get to think of like, I had no idea this was 900 calories a my day. No wonder I feel like I'm not eating anything, but I'm gaining weight. And so that awareness around food just makes the biggest difference.
Did you log, what was that called for McDonald's?
Snap wrap.
Did you log, is that how you figured out what was in there?
I was like, what? 900 calories? I was trying to get, I just didn't want to get, I was like, what's healthy, what's quick? And I was like, it was a mistake. I ate it still, obviously. But we immediately went to another store. I was like, this is why we grocery shop. I was like, it just turned me off of all the food instantly.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, eat that crap, and we're going to the store. We're gonna have snacks now. We're gonna have, because I can have that sensation of being filled was gone in like 5 minutes, and if I would have just done the turkey and the turkey with the pickles that he's been telling me about this whole time, then I would have been just fine.
Mm-hmm. And my wife, she's been a nutrition coach for 10 years, 8 years, something like that. So there are people out there who will make you a meal plan specifically to your macros and then change those weekly as you lose weight. There are people out there that will do that. But the app is a great place to start as well. Let's go over what I think would be an ideal day. An ideal day for somebody, and when you get this handout, by the way, it's going to have 2 days here of total eating with all your macros included into that. There's 2 samples here. The first sample is your average female. And I wanted to do this for a reason, and that's because without knowing anything else, if you were just to follow this meal plan, you're going to get some pretty good results, but you might need to change them as time goes on and as weight starts to go down, as it will, for sure, as you do this. Breakfast is 3 large eggs scrambled, massive pile of spinach. Never weigh vegetables unless it's starchy, like a potato. There's no point in weighing spinach, green beans, broccoli, cauliflower, onions, tomatoes, Brussels sprouts. The list goes on. There's no reason to weigh those. Does anybody know why there's no reason to weigh those? Thermal effect of food on vegetables is 10%. The calories that you get from them is about 10%. So they kind of wash themselves out. So you've never met anybody who's gained weight eating vegetables. It just nutritionally dense, high volume, low calorie. And all your vitamins and minerals are going to come from there. So you got to think about that as well. 3 large egg whites, massive pile of spinach, 1 ounce of reduced fat cheddar cheese. Nothing wrong with fat, but when you reduce the fat, it lowers your overall caloric intake. So I'm going to say there's nothing wrong with any macro, but as your day goes on, if you eat lower fat dairy, it will substantially lower your overall calorie intake. Snack number 1, a cup of fat-free Greek yogurt, 5 ounces of mixed berries, and then I have 0 calorie sweetener. So we already talked about the rabbit hole here. 0 calorie sweeteners are a big lever you can pull. And I don't like when I hear people demonizing those things. Not only is there not enough evidence, so we did this study one time where we injected rats with aspartame to find the LD50. Does anybody know what LD50 is? It's 50% of the lethal dose. So we wanted by weight to figure out exactly when aspartame became toxic. Half of that. We figured out that that level for humans was 48 12-ounce cans of soda per day, every day for 6 years. That's the lethal dose of aspartame. What we also discovered is there's something called water toxicity. Does anybody know what that is? Has anybody ever heard a horror story about a radio show giving away a prize for the first person that can chug 3 gallons of water live at this station? Yes. If you tried to overdose on aspartame, the water would kill you before the aspartame killed you. You would experience water toxicity. The minerals in your body would be diluted to the point where your heart would no longer beat because there's not minerals supporting the signal from your brain to your heart to actually beat. So that's why I say 0-calorie sweetener. The reason for that is if you have 0-calorie sweeteners, whether that is a Truvia, which is a stevia-based natural sweetener, or whether that's an aspartame, it is something you can do to keep you on track. And whether or not that affects you in the long run is kind of up in the air. What will definitely affect you in the long run is not getting enough protein and overeating on your calories. So,
And that is the agenda. I mean, it's the agenda, right? So if we could get you scared of one substance, let's say aspartame, and then advertise that it's not in other products, right? And that other product is something you want, something fatty, carby, tasty, right? But it doesn't have said poison. The likelihood of you buying that just went up 50, 20, 30, however much higher because of the fear of what not to get. It's clearly saying it's not there. So you see, first thing you think of is, oh, it's safe. But that's if you don't have the awareness of caloric density and everything else behind it, right? So one app that I like to use is called Yuka. If you can write that down, Y-U-K-A. And that will, you scan anything you want at the grocery store, and it'll tell you all of the additives and what those additives do. If those additives are low risk or if they're high risk, right? Like what is associated to these cancers and what's not, what has a higher level of said bad thing as opposed to what has very low level, right? Because a lot of the time those additives are much more worse and much more have a long-term effect on the youth, which is why we're taught about them, right? Like, what's that, red number 40 or whatever, something like that. Like, you don't want your kids to have those, but like the long-term effects that it has on us adults, like by the time it affects us, we're gonna be dead and gone, right? Like we can have as much red 40 as we want, but as a child, that's different, right? And so there's certain additives that affect certain categories of people, and it really is just to induce fear as opposed to awareness. And so Yuka is gonna really help anybody who's worried about those additives stay aware.
I think you're absolutely right too, Darius. If the point is to confuse people, then when they see the label that says no MSG, no artificial colors, no artificial sweeteners, they think that's free, and then they overeat that. And then the medical industry gets to treat you based upon the diseases you got from eating healthy foods. So.
And then, we got to talk about how a lot of these places have been in diet health. Tell them about how the proteins aren't really
Nutritional supplements are the Wild West, meaning there is no agency that oversees what actually is in a supplement versus what's on the label. Since it's not a food, it's a dietary supplement, it's not mandated by the FDA. So who oversees supplements to make sure that they're ethical as far as false advertisement is concerned? That's the U.S. Trades Commission. So what the U.S. Trades Commission does about every 5 years is they pull all available commercial protein powders and other dietary supplements off the shelf. They send them to an independent laboratory to have them tested for protein content, etc. But if I'm talking an example about protein, right? You go pick up Body Fortress whey protein from Walmart, you think it's 25 grams of protein per scoop, and then they've been indicted by the U.S. Trades Commission, it's actually only 4 grams of protein per scoop. Now, it's cheaper for them to pay the fine and go about business as normal than it is for them to actually add protein to their supplement. So if you get a fine for $500,000 and you continue business as normal, but it costs $7 million to add the protein to your product, what most companies do is they just pay the fine and continue business as normal. So that's the major issue with supplements. Now, as far as I'm concerned, whey protein is the most beneficial thing you could take as far as supplements are concerned, secondarily to creatine. Creatine does a bunch, but it's not going to build muscle without protein. So that's why in my mind, protein's number one, creatine's number two. But you have to be very careful with the brand that you choose.
We'll let you guys get some brands. Obviously, we trust Alloy, but if you guys want some other brands or want to shop around, we'll give you guys a couple.
Yeah, there are a few that have never been indicted, not once. So those are the brands that I trust. Lunch is 6 ounces of grilled chicken breast, 1 cup of cooked brown rice, huge pile of broccoli, and then steamed or roast that broccoli with some soy sauce. That's going to be just fine. My favorite snack, and those of you who I've gave some tips about nutrition on the past with, my favorite snack is deli turkey wrapped around a pickle spear, and then romaine wrapped around that. And then you dip that in a Dijon mustard, which is calorie free. So when I leave, if I have a long day, you'll see me with a Ziploc bag full of pickle spears wrapped in deli meat, and then with a romaine lettuce on top of that. That's a wrap that's super high protein. If you did that, 4 ounces of deli turkey, I mean, that's going to be 30 grams of protein right there as you're going through. Super simple snack, very portable. You guys are going to have that when you get these handouts. Dinner, 4 ounces of lean cooked protein. Any cooked protein is going to be good as long as it's lean. I'm not saying to stay away from fatty protein. I'm just saying when you're counting calories, it's always better to go with the leaner source because you're going to get more protein for a lower calorie rating. Let's name a bunch real quick. Chicken, turkey, lean steak, bison, venison. Seafood is its own category alone, where pretty much everything is going to be good to go there. But there's just so much when we're talking about lean protein. There's so much. Potatoes are one of the better foods you can eat. The reason for that is they're very low calorie for high satiation, meaning they keep you full for a super long time. The baked potato at a restaurant, usually it's loaded up with a bunch of crap. But if you were just to get a baked potato with light sour cream and some salt on there, a massive baked potato is going to have hardly any calories and it's going to keep you full for hours. So we don't want to stay away from things like that. In this sample diet here, it's all high protein, high volume, low calorie foods. The biggest issue I have with people that start this is they say they can't eat all the food. Yet, if we were to look at their stats in here, oh, excellent. Yet, if we were to look at those person's stats, they would had to have consumed their maintenance calories, which is at the top of their chart. So this is a person who's used to eating in a 500 calorie abundance. Now is eating a 500 calorie deficit, which is a 1,000 calorie difference, and they're telling me they can't eat all the food. The reason for that is very simple. It's high volume, low calorie food. So it's very hard for a person to cut 1,000 calories off of their baseline, 500 below deficit, and then eat all the food. So that's the tricky part, and that's what you want. You want to be able to cut calories and never be hungry. So the problem is, for most people, the feedback we get, if I was to say, hey, I'm going to calculate your macros for you and I'm going to give you a sample meal plan, I'm going to check in on 3 days and see how it's going. The third day, hey, how's it going with the diet? Oh, I can't eat all this food. That's great. Are you hungry? Well, no, I'm stuffed all the time. Okay, good. Are you getting your protein? Yes. Okay, good. So if you are under on your carbs and fats, that's okay. We're going to get that protein first. Most commonly what happens with a nutritional client is this. Hey, here's your macros. Here's a meal plan for you. I'm going to check in on 3 days to see how it's going. How's it going? It's going pretty good. I can't eat all this food. Okay, good. Are you at least getting your protein? Well, no. Okay, so as soon as you get your protein, we're going to go from there. But that's the first step. The first step is getting the protein in, and then we're going to talk about the next step. I'm going to call you in 3 days. So 3 days later, hey, how's it going? It's good, but I can't eat all this food. Have you eaten your protein? Well, no, I haven't eaten my protein. Okay, so we're stuck on the first step still. We got to get this protein in, and then we're going to move on to the next step. Call you in 3 days. Guess what happens the fourth time I call them?
Finally got the protein.
They get it for 1 day. What happened? 1 day last week, I got my protein. I'm so proud. I'm proud of you too. That's fantastic. Let's work on 2 days now. And we're going to go from there. As soon as we have 7 days of protein, then we can move on and talk about your carbohydrates and your fats and anything you're experiencing like low energy, not recovering from workouts, stuff like that. So then we go on from there. But the very first thing we try to take care of is the protein. As you guys get these handouts, you're going to have these samples here. You're going to be able to go follow just along with this. You're going to be able to enter your macros. You're going to be able to do your math, and you're going to be able to count for everything that you eat. If you're the kind of person that's looking at this and you're thinking, you know, I don't know if I want to get that crazy about it, if you want to call it crazy, what are some practical first steps? Practical first step is protein consumption. It's the very first thing you want to do is eat your protein. Let's see what we got. Yeah, almost done. We're wrapping it up here. Is there a secret? There definitely is a secret. It's not going to be a secret for long. And you guys probably got the gist of this already as we're going through today. The secret is, drum roll please. Woohoo! A high level of consistency over a long period of time and under various levels of stress. The various levels of stress part is probably the most important part. Because here's what people do. Typically, a person wakes up and they say, do I feel like tracking my macros today? And the answer, most of the time, is going to be no. You don't feel like it. And then you wake up the next day and you say, oh, I had a hard day at work. I didn't get much sleep last night. My sleep score is down. Do I feel like tracking my macros today? And the answer is no.
Same working out. Do I feel like walking into alleys?
Right. Do I feel like standing for 6.5 hours today after I get off work instead of sitting? The answer is no, or doing any other activity. But this is the secret. The people who you look at who've been through a transformation or in a really respectable physical state, they don't care how they feel. Once you're certain about the math and once you get this process of it works for every person every time, you really stop caring. Because then whatever you had in your head about nothing ever works for me, this is going to be another thing that doesn't work for me. This works for literally every person every time. There's never a person this isn't going to work for because this is accounting. It's got nothing to do with how much sleep you got last night, or if you're fighting with your spouse, or if your boss is being an asshole, or if the weather's bad outside, or if you're concerned with your 401k. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. The math is always going to work. So we need to find some peace with this. We need to find some peace with this. And we need to get into the frame of mind where this works for every person every time, and it doesn't matter how I feel. That's the secret. And I'm not asking you to be necessarily a psycho, but a little psycho is good. Just a little bit,
Or
right?
a season of being psycho. Because we talk
Thank
about
you.
like balance and consistency. Those are really hard things, right? So we need to account and give ourselves some grace for those times of leniency, which we just got done experiencing, right? Like the end of October to December, you guys haven't figured that out, needs to be a time of leniency, right? Where you're not so hard on yourself. You're expecting to be in a caloric surplus. You're expecting to drink with friends. You're expecting to not be doing like everything to the T. But that expectation can't come without consistency prior to and preparation. So yeah, you do need to do these things and to track and to kind of be a little crazy about it, but it's not for very long. It's just until you've got it burned into your head and you understand this is where I've been dropping the ball, this is where I'm strong. You got to track where you're dropping the ball and stay consistent where you're strong. And then when that time of leniency comes, you enjoy it. You take that vacation. You enjoy it, like you work for it.
Yeah, and you don't freak out when this happens. You don't freak out here. You don't freak out here. You don't freak out here or here or here or here or here or here. This channel is going to move down as long as you're accounting for everything that you're putting in your body. Good point about seasons. Yeah. Like when your bro brings in a pizza on your birthday, right? No,
You can.
I wasn't about to. Yeah.
But we didn't plan for that. I was like, look, yo, before I leave here, I didn't know he was getting a pizza, but I was like, so you got calories to burn today?
Mm-hmm.
So have you eaten in the last 5 hours? He said, I've been coaching for 5 hours straight. I was like, okay, cool, we're good.
It was accounted for. Yes. Yes. Okay. So,
Are you weighing your meats before you cook?
Not a benefit. Great freaking question.
excellent question. You always measure meats after you cook them. And the reason for that is it's just a difference. If it's a lean meat, it's a difference in water. So you're going to get a more accurate measurement. Yeah. And then it's just for sanitary practices.
I'm assuming, like, this is gonna probably shrink down to 4 ounces.
Right. And just for general sanitary practices, it's not good to just throw raw meat on a food scale all the time. You want your food scale to be, you don't want to have to sanitize it all the time, if that makes sense. Yeah.
No, that was the same. That was
It's a great
the question I
question.
came up last time.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so what do I weigh before I cook it and what do I weigh after I cook it? And pastas and things that like anything that you're adding water to, like the oats or the pastas or anything like that, you're gonna want to weigh that stuff prior to, and then the meat things that are gonna lose water and bring the fat out, you want to weigh after. And you know what? Weighing in general is a step in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
So who cares if you were an ounce or two off? At least you weighed something. Like that is a step in the right direction. Okay.
Yes.
Waiting for calculating the amount of protein you need to have. I'm guessing that's different from person.
Yes.
Like, do I have to do that first, or do I have to do that now?
I can print it off your thing.
I have to do that now to figure out what protein I.
So your in-body is going to tell you. So everybody here has an in-body scan. We do that periodically as you go through. That's going to tell you your minimum protein consumption is your lean body mass. So it'll tell you what your lean body mass is on your in-body scan, and that is your minimum protein. And I say minimum protein because everybody in different situation needs more. Young athletes need much more. It's not a gram per pound of lean body mass. It's more like 1.2 to 1.5 grams. If you're trying to gain muscle, like a serious amount of muscle in a short period of time, it's always more than that. So the 1 gram per pound of lean body mass is just like a starting point as you're going through. So yes, it's different. Everybody's lean body mass is going to be different. So their starting point is all going to be different. And this is going to make a lot more sense once you get this. Everything is just completely spelled out for you on this handout. And I had it in here. I'm just trying to find it real quick. Yeah, the more aggressively you're cutting, so it starts, you bump it up from 1 to 1.2 to 1.4 to 1.5, depending upon your goals, and then how much you can tolerate on a daily basis. So some people in the beginning aren't going to be able to eat all of that, so we're going to bump it down a little bit. But hey, man, if you're a college wrestler, it's more like 1.5. I mean, realistically, it's a lot. It's a lot more. And here's another thing too. The first thing that athletes do once they start making money as a professional in their sport is they hire a nutritionist and a chef. Very first thing. And that's for a reason. It's because they're required to eat so much more protein than a normal person is. They have to recover from intense training. If you were to arbitrarily go into a caloric deficit with no concern for your macro ratio, your body will take from muscle, it will take from tendons, it will take from ligaments, it will take from organ tissue, it will take from spinal fluid, it'll take from your freaking retinas. So that's why protein is so important. Protein locks that up, and combine that with resistance training, it locks all those lean tissues up. So a lot of the times what happens, and the reason why these weight loss drugs have such a bad rap, is because it puts people in an arbitrary caloric deficit, a pretty aggressive one, and then they go to do their first lunge and their freaking ACL tears. Their body has been stripping away tendons and ligaments and muscle at the same time. So that's where the protein and the resistance training come in. And by the way, too, while we're on the subject, I mean, these medications are going to get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper to the point where everybody can afford it, no problem. Easily. It's going to be a prescription that's just handed out without even a doctor's visit. All they do is put you in a caloric deficit by reducing your appetite. There's no magic there that causes you to burn more calories. It makes you feel full synthetically. That's all it does. I don't think there's anything personally wrong with that. If it's a life or death situation with somebody who has 100 pounds to lose, and they're either going to go through this process of year over year over year, trying and failing different things, other than take a GLP-1, I think that's a good place to start for sure. We all have self-control that we need to exercise on a daily basis. Absolutely. But everybody's lives are a little bit different. So if you're utilizing your self-control to not kill your boss, and then the self-control is done when you get home from work at the end of the day, I personally don't think there's anything wrong with some synthetic self-control, you know?
It's a great one. Once you've gotten something, I mean, that is synthetic can only eat so far though. And that is proven. I mean, you're only losing 30, and the more beneficial people are losing 40, 50. And in that process, it's not just healthy fat that's going away, it's the muscle mass as well. But once you've lost like the average, there should be no reason to stay on the GLP-1. Like, once you've gotten the overall goal weight loss for the initial weight loss, I'd get off it ASAP. Even if you were like in the 100 pounds, you get the support to lose 30, 40 pounds. It's a great jump start. Now take that momentum and run with it. Definitely.
Because lifestyle choices matter.
Lifestyle, yeah. Most people who take it and then get off of it, they gain it right back.
Because they
Those who
didn't change
take it
their
and
lifestyle.
transition in their lifestyle can maintain success.
And by the way, all the negative effects associated with those are from an extreme caloric deficit with no accounting on your macro ratio. So it's always like, the first thing that goes is protein, and they're not doing resistance training. So it's like, once your appetite is suppressed, the last thing you want to do is sit down and eat a dry ass chicken breast, you know? So you eat whatever instead, but usually your protein absolutely tanks. As these drugs continue to come out, there's going to be a GLP-2, there's going to be a GLP-3, and then finally there's going to be a GLP-4. These are all in the pipeline right now. They're going to get healthier the more they're produced. So like it or not, it's just part of the future, and it's going to happen. That being said, that's all I had for you guys. Final tips: tracking MyFitnessPal or Chronometer. Those are two good apps to use. Write it down if you want to. Instead of logging it, you can absolutely do math all day long if that helps you out. Recalculate your macros as your math drops. Generally speaking, about every 5 pounds is when you want to recalculate your total numbers as you're going through there. Pair that with your consistent training. You guys are doing that here already. And I can't speak enough for this training. The reason for that is, if I was to have you guys do a resistance training protocol that was effective, I'd have to spend 2 years teaching you how many sets and how many reps and when to change up body parts and how much rest to take and when do you increase your weight and then when do you increase your range on your lunges and your squats, when to mix things up, how to linearly progress, how to have progressive overload, and then how to have periodization in your training. All of that is like a 2-year process that coaches like us have to go through in order to learn these things. So without you needing to learn these things, the luxury I have when printing these things out is I can put in here for everybody in this room that comes here, I can just put adequate resistance training. That's it. Otherwise, there'd be 5 more pages on this that you'd have to follow over years. So that's the benefit to coming here. And I want you guys to realize that this is a really cool thing. And I'm glad to be a part of it. I get to give you guys each linear progression and progressive overload and periodization as we're going through the training. So those of you here who I'm your coach, I will just hand you heavier weights as you can handle the heavier weights. That's just how it goes. I slowly turn it up and you guys don't even realize it. Before you know it, you're doing full range lunges and pushing stuff overhead that you never thought was possible. So that's what I love to do. So thank you guys for trusting us 3 with your health and fitness. And thank you, coaches, for just opening this space up for professionals to come show people how to train, because this really is a godsend. Can you imagine going to a big box gym and figuring all this crap out on your own? It took us years, you know what I mean? So it would take everybody else years to
I'm
even...
still learning things. 8 years I've been in the gym for fun because I enjoy it 5 days a week. And I'm still learning things today, week after week, about form and new training styles and everything. There's always something else. As soon as you think you know something, you learn what you don't know, right? Like kettlebells has its own certification. Like that's its own art, is just picking up kettlebells and starting with. Same as TRX training, like pull-up training. Like we could spend 6 months on just how to hold the bar.
Oh man.
Freaking on
Yeah.
the pull-up. Different ways on how to hold it. and why.
I've done 12-week courses on plyometrics alone. So it's like, it's a pretty big deal. Do you guys have any more questions? If there's something you didn't want to ask in the group, you can come up and ask me afterwards if you want to. But as far as that's concerned, we're going to wrap it up. Give yourself a round of applause for sitting through that.